The laughter hit me before I even reached the entrance. It spilled from the giant ballroom, polished and gleaming under hundreds of soft golden lights. Music swelled from the live band, the sound of champagne glasses clinking, heels clicking on marble floors, and chatter rising like steam in a pressure cooker. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. I walked in alone, heads turned, not because I was late, not because I was dressed differently, but because, in their eyes, I had no business being there without anyone by my side. There she is, someone near the bar muttered. Wow, my cousin Elise snickered. Brave of her to show up solo. She couldn't even find a date, my sister Rachel whispered to the woman next to her, loud enough for the room to catch it. It's honestly sad. I didn't flinch. I just kept walking. The navy blue dress I wore wasn't designer. It wasn't new. I'd stitched it myself after work for 3 nights straight because rent came first and life didn't come with safety nets. My heels were borrowed. My nails were bare. My lipstick? Drugstore red. But my spine? Unbreakable. The scent of roses and expensive perfume was thick in the air. Every table was set with crystal, the chandeliers dripping elegance, and the stage was dressed like something out of a magazine. Rachel's wedding was the most extravagant event my family had ever thrown. She was marrying Greg Madison. Wall Street legacy, 3rd-generation wealth, enough charm to make the papers. And me? I was the forgotten daughter. The one who left home without a trust fund or a real job. The one who worked at a used bookstore downtown and didn't post luxury photos online. The one they tried to erase from holiday cards. I made my way to the corner of the ballroom, to the table labeled distant family and plus ones. Alone. No one offered a greeting. Not my parents, who avoided eye contact from their VIP table. Not my brother, who once called me his best friend but now didn't even nod. The air was stiff with judgment. I'd barely pulled the chair out when Aunt Nancy leaned over from the next table and asked with a smirk, "So, Harper still single?" I looked up, still breathing. She gave a tight-lipped smile and turned away. I sat, stomach twisted. Rachel had made it clear I didn't belong here. Inviting me was just to keep appearances clean. A formality. A reminder of who won. But I refused to break. Then it happened. The ballroom doors, massive, ornate, and gold-handled, swung open with a loud boom. Conversation stopped. The band missed a beat. Everyone turned. Standing in the doorway was a man in a tailored charcoal gray suit, raindrops still clinging to his jacket. Hair tousled. Tie loosened just enough to make him look like every woman's dream. He stepped inside like he owned the room, confident, focused, unstoppable. And then his eyes found mine. My breath caught. He strode past gasping guests, heels sharp against the marble, straight toward my table. I stood on instinct, completely frozen. He didn't hesitate. He took my hand in his, leaned close, and said with a warm smile, "Sorry I'm late, love." I blinked. He whispered, just for me to hear, "Play along." Then louder, to everyone else, he turned with charm carved from diamonds and said, "Traffic was a nightmare. But I couldn't miss celebrating your sister's big day." The entire ballroom seemed to hold its breath. "I'm Nathan," he said, glancing toward my father and Rachel. "Harper's fiancé." A fork clattered onto a plate somewhere. Gasps swept through the room like a gust of wind. Rachel looked like she'd swallowed a brick. Greg's expression shifted. My mother's mouth opened and closed like a fish. My father's jaw ticked. Nathan gave me the softest smile. Reassuring. Safe. Powerful. And I realized this wasn't just a performance. This was the beginning of something they'd never see coming. For a few seconds, nobody moved. Not a single soul in that ballroom knew what to do with the image now standing in front of them. Me. The so-called family embarrassment, with a billionaire gripping my hand like I was his entire world. Then came the whispers. "Fiancé? Since when? Is he serious? That's Nathan Hale, right? From Hale Holdings." My heart pounded. Nathan Hale? That Nathan Hale? The name wasn't just recognizable, it was legendary. A tech billionaire who dropped off the Forbes list not because he was losing money, but because he bought the media company that published it. He was real. Standing right beside me, holding my hand like it belonged there. Rachel's face twisted. She stepped off the wedding stage in her glittering ivory gown, heels tapping fast across the floor. Her perfect bride smile?
Gone.
What the hell is this? She hissed, barely keeping her voice low. You brought a fake fiancé to my wedding? Nathan didn't flinch. Fake, he asked smoothly. That's a bold assumption for someone who didn't even know her sister still speaks fluent French, owns 3 patents, and volunteers on weekends. Rachel blinked. He turned to her groom. Greg, right? Pleasure. I've read your quarterly projections. Bold to bet on that merger next year. Might want to reconsider the tax implications, though. Just a thought. Greg stiffened. I didn't say a word. I just stood still, barely breathing. Nathan looked at me again, his voice suddenly soft. You okay? I nodded slowly, barely keeping up with what was happening. He smiled, and it felt like a shield.
Good.
You looked so alone when I walked in. I couldn't let that happen. Gasps again. Now louder. My father stood, his voice cutting through the room. Nathan Hale. You expect me to believe you're dating her? Nathan's jaw tensed slightly, but his voice was calm. I don't need to explain myself to you. She's been nothing but a failure, my father said coldly, waving a hand. She walked away from the family, threw away opportunities. She's the reason her mother. Enough, Nathan snapped. An entire room froze again. His eyes darkened. If you think raising your voice or rewriting her story will intimidate me, try again. The silence after that was suffocating. Then he turned to me, his voice gentle again. Can we step outside? I nodded. He led me out of the ballroom, past waiters and stunned guests and half-full glasses of champagne. When we reached the garden terrace lit with fairy lights, I finally pulled my hand back and whispered, Why are you doing this? Nathan looked down at me, hands in his pockets, tone honest. Because I was there 3 weeks ago, he said. At the bookstore. You gave me the last copy of Bel Canto. You said it was your favorite and told me to keep it, even though it was a first edition. My heart stopped. You said, some stories deserve to be held, not shelved. And then you smiled and went right back to shelving returns while your coworkers mocked you for talking too much. I stared at him. You remembered me? I never forgot you, he said. You were kind. You saw me when I was trying not to be seen. My throat tightened. I looked you up later, he continued. Saw what your family said about you. I didn't like it. When I found out your sister was getting married tonight and your name was on the guest list alone, I knew I had to be here. I couldn't breathe. But the way they treated you in there, he said, voice now trembling with anger. That wasn't okay. They needed to know your worth. And I wanted to be the one to remind them. Tears burned behind my eyes. Not because I was sad, but because someone finally saw me and believed in me without asking me to shrink first. Nathan smiled again, gently this time. So, should we go back in? I looked at him. Yeah, I said, steadying my voice. Let's give them something to really talk about. We re-entered the ballroom, hand in hand, and this time, I wasn't invisible. The energy had shifted. People whispered, but not with mockery. This time, it was fear, confusion, and curiosity. Nathan led me past the tables, like we were royalty walking through a foreign court. I could feel the eyes of every relative who had once called me directionless or a waste. They stared now, unsure whether to smile, look away, or apologize. None did. Rachel stood on the stage, fuming. Her dress shimmered under the lights, but her expression was dark. She leaned into Greg's ear, whispering something sharp. He nodded reluctantly and stepped down toward us with a stiff smile. Mind if we talk? He asked. Nathan let go of my hand, but stayed close. Depends on the topic. Greg forced a polite grin. I don't know what this is, some dramatic entrance for attention, maybe, but I'd rather not have the press spin it the wrong way. I'm sure you understand. Nathan cocked an eyebrow. Oh, I understand exactly. You're worried my presence at this wedding might overshadow your big moment. It's their day, Nathan, Greg said coolly, eyes darting to the phones already out. Let's not make it about whatever this is. Nathan looked at me, then back at him. You're right. He turned, raising his voice ever so slightly. Attention, everyone. I apologize for interrupting earlier. I'd like to make something clear. The room went still again. I'm not here to cause a scene, he said. But I also won't stand by and let Harper, my fiancé, be humiliated for showing up with dignity while the rest of you whispered like high schoolers behind cafeteria trays. Dead silence. He smiled faintly. But don't worry. I'm not staying long. I've already seen enough. And just like that, he offered me his arm again. We turned to leave. But Rachel wasn't done. Oh, please, she spat from the stage, finally breaking. This is just some pathetic stunt.
He's not your fiancé.
You probably paid him. That stung. Not because it might convince others, but because I knew Rachel meant it. Tell them, she continued. Tell them the truth, Harper. That you begged some stranger to show up here just to make yourself feel important. I turned slowly. All the air left my lungs. But Nathan didn't let me speak. He stepped forward, his voice like ice.
No.
But I did offer to invest in her nonprofit. The one you all ignored when she pitched it during the family fundraiser last year. Rachel's face drained of color. You remember that, right? Nathan said. She wanted to create a community reading program for underserved schools. She submitted proposals. Followed up. Got nothing but radio silence from her own family.
My mom stood now.
That's not fair. No, what's not fair, Nathan snapped, is watching a woman you claim to love sit in the back row while you all play perfect up front. The room shifted uncomfortably. People looked away. Some sat down again. Others pretended to sip drinks just to avoid the tension. I stepped forward then. I didn't ask him to do this, I said softly. I didn't ask for attention. I just showed up because I thought maybe being here meant I still belonged. I looked right at Rachel. But I was wrong. She opened her mouth, but I held up a hand. No more fake smiles. No more pretending this family didn't turn its back on me the second I didn't fit your mold. The lights felt hotter. My voice felt stronger. So you can keep your perfect wedding, your cold congratulations, and your shallow whispers. But I'm done shrinking to make room for your egos. And with that, I turned to Nathan. Let's go. The ballroom doors closed behind us a second time. But this time I didn't feel small. I felt free. We didn't speak until we were back in Nathan's car, a sleek, black Aston Martin parked beneath the glowing awning of the Grand Lexington Hotel. The moment the door shut, sealing us away from the cold eyes and champagne-soaked whispers, I finally exhaled. I can't believe you did that, I said, half in awe, half in shock. That you showed up. That you knew. Nathan glanced over, his face soft now. I didn't know what I'd walk into, but I felt it that day in the bookstore. Like you were fighting to stay visible in a world that kept trying to erase you. I swallowed, emotions catching in my throat. It's been like that for years. He nodded. I know. His voice was quieter now.
Sadder.
He shifted in his seat, running a hand through his hair. Harper, there's something else I didn't tell you. I blinked.
What?
He pulled out his phone, tapped a few times, and turned the screen toward me. It was a photo, blurry, slightly tilted. But it was me, taken from inside the bookstore. I looked confused. I didn't take it, he said. My assistant did. Months ago.
He paused.
She was researching potential hires for a foundation I'm starting, quietly. One of the staff had read a piece you wrote on literacy access. Your name kept popping up. I visited the store to meet you casually. No agenda. No strings. But then, when you handed me that book and smiled at me like I wasn't a stranger, I knew I didn't just want to work with you. I stared at him. I wanted to know you. Silence.
Thick. Real.
You came to see me? I didn't mean to lie, he said. But after today, it felt wrong not to tell you. I didn't want you thinking this was some pity stunt. I looked out the window, rain starting to mist the glass. It wasn't pity. It was protection. A kindness I didn't know how to accept because I'd never been shown it this way before. I turned back to him. You said something back there about my nonprofit idea. How did you even know about that? He smiled a little. I told you. I read everything. I blinked, stunned. You actually read the proposal? All 42 pages. My hands trembled. I'd poured every piece of myself into that project. Spent nights sketching out models, researching funding gaps, pitching it to my family only to be laughed off the porch. I want to fund it, he said softly. Not just because it's good, but because you are. My throat tightened. You don't even know me. I know what it feels like to be invisible in a room full of people who only see what they want, he said. And I know what courage looks like when it walks into a ballroom alone, wearing borrowed heels and dignity like armor. The tears came then, not because I was sad, but because for the first time in my life, I felt seen. He reached for my hand, his grip warm and steady. But Harper, he added, if we do this, your foundation, your work, it's got to be yours. Fully. I don't want headlines. I don't want press. I just want to be the guy who stands behind the woman who changed everything. I laughed through the tears, shaking my head. You're unbelievable. No, he said, smiling. I just believe in you. We sat there for a long moment, rain tapping gently on the windows, city lights reflecting off the windshield like stars. Then my phone buzzed. I checked it and froze. It was a message from Rachel. You think this is over? That stunt might have worked tonight. But don't forget, I know who you really are. My heart twisted. I showed it to Nathan. He read it, then calmly took my phone and placed it face down on the console. She's afraid, he said. And people who are afraid lash out. I nodded slowly. She's going to try and destroy me. Nathan leaned closer. Then it's time, he said, voice low. You stopped letting her win. The next morning, Rachel's text wasn't just a threat. It was a warning. By noon, posts were swirling online. A few old photos from my college dropout year. A misquoted article headline from a blog I never approved. Someone even claimed I was faking the engagement for money. Rachel had clearly gone all in. Nathan didn't say much. Instead, he made a quiet call. 2 hours later, I stood behind him at a press conference in a midtown hotel lounge, too shocked to speak. And for the record, Nathan said into the mic, calm and precise, this woman is not only my fiancée, she's also the founder of a fully funded national reading initiative that launches next month. And she doesn't need my name. She has won. It's Harper Lynn Carr. The cameras flashed. Reporters leaned in. Rachel's digital smear campaign? Obliterated. That night, I went home to my tiny apartment, not a penthouse. I made tea. I sat in silence. And for the first time in years, I felt proud. I wasn't just someone's plus one, or someone's shadow, or someone's failure. I was me. When Nathan showed up outside my door later, holding that same first edition book, he smiled softly and said, I told you. Some stories deserve to be held. This time, I believed him. And I believed in myself. The girl who walked into the wedding alone never walked alone again.